Is back. America is back. Diplomacy is back at the center of our foreign policy. We will compete from a position of strength by building back better at home, working with our allies and partners, renewing our role in international institutions.
President Biden announcing to the world that America is back. Republicans might say it's back to globalism, spreading our wealth all around the world, maybe. Biden delivered his first major foreign policy speech at the State Department as he looks to abandon President Trump's America First policy. And while Biden spoke about reaching out to our allies, he is yet to call our biggest ally in the Middle East, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. That's not a very good start. Jason Greenblatt served as President Trump's special envoy for Middle East peace. Jason, thanks for taking the time. I want to start with that Biden hasn't called Netanyahu yet, didn't even mention Israel in that big speech. What do you make of that?
It's very disappointing. You know, the speech was typical Washingtonian speech, big words, diplomacy, leadership, a lot of swipes against the Trump administration. But you know what, as somebody who was out of government for all my life until I spent 3 arduous years in government, words like leadership and diplomacy, they mean nothing. Let's hear some details. I mean, you touched on China very slightly. He touched on China very slightly. Russia. He took a big swipe against Saudi Arabia, which is very disappointing. And the fact that he hasn't called Prime Minister Netanyahu and our other allies in the region. Let's face it, Iran is one of the biggest threats to the region and to everybody. Let's call those allies and find out what they want to hear, what they want to do, what they think the problems and the solutions are in the Middle East.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because that is exactly what I've always felt. I listened to all these diplomatic political speeches, and I just feel like this said nothing. And I think that's how they have always operated until Trump came along. The administration, the Biden administration, feels like it's pretty far left, certainly left of where Biden has always been. Do you think that there might be anti-Israel voices inside the White House at this point?
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, there's certainly some pro-Israel voices, too, but there's no doubt there were some anti-Israel voices, and I would say uneducated voices. Let's just broaden the scope for a second. And he spoke about Yemen, right? I was on a plane sitting on the tarmac in Riyadh last week with my son. We were flying from Riyadh to Jeddah, and we were withheld from flying for about an hour and a half because there was a missile shot towards Riyadh from Yemen. Wow. So, of course, you want to talk about the humanitarian effects against the Yemeni people, but you have to explain why that's happening. Would anybody in the United States tolerate a missile being shot if you were sitting at the airport at LAX or JFK? Of course not. So I think there are anti-Israel voices. I think there are anti-Saudi Arabia voices, anti-United Arab Emirates voices, and so on and so forth. People have to get a better education of what the problems are, what this region is really like.
You know, and just talking about that, you're talking about Yemen, Saudi Arabia. Biden has said that he's going to stop supporting Saudi operations against the Iranian-backed forces, the rebels, whatever you call them, in Yemen. So basically, he's going to give Iran a break, it sounds like. Why would he make a decision like that?
I don't understand it. And he did pay lip service to Saudi Arabia. It's true. He recognized the right to defend its citizens. But, oh, wow, you know, that's a little bit obvious, right? How do you recognize the right to defend yourself? You stand by your allies the same way we in the Trump administration stood by Israel when it defends itself against the Iran-funded terrorists Hamas in Gaza. Absolutely. Saudi faces the same thing with Yemen. You have to stand by them unequivocally, not sort of say there's a humanitarian crisis, oh, and by the way, we'll stand by you. They're two different issues. They have to both be dealt with, but they're not going to be dealt with all of those nice words.
Yeah. The president, Jared Kushner, been recognized by the Nobel Committee for the Abraham Accords, getting the 4 Arab nations to agree to the peace deals with Israel. It was tremendous to watch all this come together. Those two get a lot of the headlines, but you were a major part of those negotiations behind the scenes. Give us a sense of what it was like to go through that, to get that done, and how much good it has done for that region.
Well, I was honored to do it. I mean, it was really amazing to work under the leadership of an administration that wasn't afraid to speak hard truths, allow us to speak openly about the conflict, how to react to the conflict, how to separate the Arab-Israeli conflict from the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Right. It's not that we didn't want to solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. That's not ripe to be solved just yet. But we were able to figure out that the Arab-Israeli conflict could be resolved separately. I give President Trump and Jared tremendous credit, as well as all the leaders in the region, for getting us through that. And really, it was a deep honor as an American to be able to work on that as a strong Israel supporter, and now as a close friend of our allies and friends throughout the Arab world.
Yeah. It's awesome that you were a part of that, because I think that was just so impressive, and I think it spun Washington, D.C. around and made them have to rethink everything that they thought that they knew about how to do these deals and how to do diplomacy. Are you concerned, though, that all that good work is in jeopardy under this new administration?
I think it's going to depend on what happens with Iran. I don't think they're going to try to undo the Abraham Accords, but I hope that they don't change the policies that President Trump put forth, like the recognition of Morocco's sovereignty over the Western Sahara, the arms deals that are important for our friends and allies, the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, certainly support for Israel against its fight against terrorism.
Right.
We saw, if I can just add one thing, we saw that they're talking to the Palestinian leadership about their pay-to-slay policy as if we didn't try. Look, I hope that President Biden succeeds in getting the Palestinian leadership to stop paying terrorists to kill Israelis, but it's not as if we didn't try. They were unwilling to do anything. So I think they need to take a tougher stance. This is a rough and tough region, and they need to be open and honest. And I hope they don't undo the policies, because I think the policies were important, not only for the region, but for the United States of America.
Well said. Well said. All right. Well, we will see what happens. It's great to talk with you, sir. Jason Greenblatt, we appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Good to see you.
All right.